Hi, this is Mr. Mike for the Mechanicsburg Learning Center with another edition, another episode, episode number 80 of Mr. Mike's Dino-A-Day. So, I'm talk about an animal that I say this a lot, but it deserves a lot more recognition because it played a very pivotal role in something called the Bone Wars back in the 1800s. The Bone Wars took place between two different gentlemen, one named O.C. Marsh and one named E.D. Cope, Edward Drinker Cope, Othniel Charles Marsh. These were two contemporary paleontologists that wanted to outdiscover each other, so they ended up doing some pretty nasty things to each other just to try to outdiscover the other one and be the preeminent paleontologist of his day. So when you are doing this, the bones are being purchased, the bones are being dug up, some people are blowing up the bones so no one else could discover them. Just a lot of nefarious things were taking place. And one of the things that took place was the naming of dinosaurs, and they did it very quickly. They wanted to do it quickly and get one more dinosaur discovered before the other guy had a chance to name it or find it. So this happened a lot. And over the years, since the late 1800s, many of these dinosaurs have been overturned. The names have been assigned to another genus, or what ends up happening sometimes is they find out that what this person named, and then they made all these other things take place afterwards, got other names, then they return to the original animal, and either O.C. Marsh or Edward Drinker Cope gets credit again. So even though these guys are long gone, they still have a profound influence on the science of paleontology. So this dinosaur is one that just is not very recognizable, but it happens to be the most commonly discovered sauropod dinosaur from the late Jurassic period, which was 160 to about 142 million years ago. So it's very common. We have many specimens of it. We have adults, we have juveniles, we know what it looks like, but something happened with the one discovery of the Brontosaurus, and that's why this animal, the Camarasaurus, is related to it. Now, if you didn't have the head, it certainly just looks like your typical sauropod. But the head makes it pretty distinctive looking. It's very blunt shaped. And it almost looks like, it's missing its snout. It has a little nasal openings on the tip of its snout. It's got a little bit of a nose crest. Very strong teeth. Camarasaurus had very strong teeth. But it does look a little bit different than your typical sauropod, or at least what we're used to seeing. So what happened was they discovered a dinosaur that did not have a head. They went ahead and named it Brontosaurus, and then they found a head some miles away, and they decided to put that head on it. So, for the longest time, Brontosaurus / Apatosaurus, because now we do know that the Brontosaurus was renamed Apatosaurus because the name Apatosaurus came first, and then of course 2015 they made some more startling discoveries and decided that Brontosaurus did deserve to be its own genus, and once again Brontosaurus became a dinosaur after it was summarily dismissed as a genus. But this all took place a few years ago, and now we know what happened with the Camarasaurus. The head ended up on the Brontosaurus, and for the longest time, when you would go to a museum to see the quote-unquote Brontosaurus, which would eventually be renamed Apatosaurus and then back again, you saw it with a Camarasaurus skull. So the Camarasaurus, even though the name isn't familiar, sometimes the look of it is because people recognize it having seen it on another dinosaur. So it's a long and storied history that these animals have. So a little bit about the thing. It had 5 toes in the front, and the middle toe has a claw on it, a sharpened claw, maybe to help defend itself, maybe to scratch at the vegetation. Different species of Camarasaurus have been found. So you have the genus, Camarasaurus, and then you have the species name. And thus far, several different species have been named, and they vary in length from anywhere from maybe 49 feet long to 75 feet long. So it was a decent-sized sauropod. It was 15 foot at the hips, where we always measure dinosaur height. And if you look closely, its forelimbs are just a little bit shorter than its hind legs. So was it able to get up and get to the top of the leaves, the leaves at the top of the tree by rearing up on its hind legs? Perhaps. The teeth itself were about 7.5 inches long. They were very strong, and they were kind of chisel shaped. So I've described other sauropod teeth pencil shaped. These are a little bit wider, a little bit stronger, and they have not found any evidence of gastroliths. Gastroliths are the rocks that animals swallow, and then they reside in their gut to help grind up pulp. Well, they're not really necessarily, and it's a common thing for a sauropod to have, but in the Camarasaurus, they did not find them, and they reason that maybe they didn't need sauropods to help pulverize their food because they had such strong grinding teeth. So the skull was blunt. Word about the tail, it was actually very stiff. It didn't seem to, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the neck. The neck was kind of stiff. It didn't really seem to move about very much. Weren't sure how high it could raise it, because as an animal this size would raise its head, that would put a lot of pressure on the heart. So it seemed to be stiff and not be terribly flexible. So it didn't lollygag around like that. It probably kept it pretty stiff and moved its body to find vegetation. Originally discovered in 1877 by Oramel W. Lucas, and then Edward Drinker Cope bought those bones from Oramel, and within a very short period of time, the same year, E.D. Cope actually described the animal and got in before O.C. Marsh did. So the Camarasaurus was in fact named by Edward Drinker Cope. Of course, O.C. Marsh did name an animal, and he called it Morosaurus, and turned out to be just another Camarasaurus. So that was one that E.D. Cope got the credit for, and O.C. Marsh did not get credit for. Doesn't matter, because O.C. Marsh eventually won the war, the Bone War. 1925, they discovered a complete skeleton of Camarasaurus, and Charles W. Gilmore ended up doing the description on that. It was a younger, not a complete adult, so it was a little bit smaller. But it is kind of fascinating that the Camarasaurus is one of the most commonly found dinosaurs, yet most people have never heard of it. If you would like to see a very, very interesting example of the Camarasaurus, there is a head and neck perfectly preserved in the Dinosaur National Monument. Do a little Google search on the Dinosaur National Monument. It's out west in the United States, and there is a full head and neck preserved, still in the rock wall, and it is something to see. So, the story of Camarasaurus, herbivorous, quadrupedal, lived about 155 to maybe 145 million years ago. 49 to 79 feet long and 15 feet tall at the hips. Camarasaurus, written for you by Mr. Mike, brought to you by the Mechanicsburg Learning Center. We do this live every day during the quarantine. Right now it's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but that time may be changing soon. So thanks for watching this live. If you would like to see all of the episodes, simply go to YouTube and look for Mr. Mike Sgrignoli, and all the previous 79 episodes are there, happily minus episode number 66, which we will call the Forgotten Episode, because for some reason it just refuses to migrate to YouTube. That's a trivia question that someday you'll all want to know the answer to. The Camarasaurus. This dinosaur is one of the most common that is found, and yet few recognize the name, and so I will expound. It's called Camarasaurus, meaning chambered lizard. Plus, there really are a lot of reasons we should make a fuss. It played a starring role in a much celebrated war between two famous men who scrutinized the dinosaur. A skeleton was found, but it was lacking any head, so they just used a big Camarasaurus one instead. The sauropod they gave the incorrect large cranium, none other than the Brontosaurus. Boy, did they feel dumb. In fact, for many years, the Brontosaurus neck was crowned with a Camarasaurus head. The mix-up was renowned. But for the beast itself, it's good to know how it appeared. We certainly don't want its reputation to be smeared. The beast, Camarasaurus, was a gentle sauropod. Its forelimbs had 5 toes, and one could help it as it clawed. No stomach rocks were found, which means it chewed up all its food. Its teeth were very strong and periodically renewed. Every 62 days, it had a new tooth. The skull itself was blunt and rather different from the rest. All this was found in Utah and some other spots out west. It sure deserves more fame, since science knows it pretty well. But fame, thus far, eluded it, as far as I can tell. So take another moment to appreciate this beast. The old Camarasaurus should be recognized at the very least. The Camarasaurus, brought to you by the Mechanicsburg Learning Center, written by yours truly, Mr. Mike. We do this live every day on Facebook, and then we have all of our videos available on YouTube. So when you get a moment, please subscribe, please watch our previous episodes, and please like them. And until tomorrow, when we will be on episode 81, this is Mr. Mike for the Camarasaurus. Have a great, great day.